Corey was so proud of his newly bought huge piece of landscape, nobody wanted the land because it was so rocky. You couldn't do anything with it. Cody has been exploring his land for a week now and found multiple strange things. Today he stumbled on some metal object. When he looked closer, he couldn't believe his eyes. He found military equipment on his land. Corey was shocked and didn't know what to do, but before we start, make sure to subscribe if you haven't and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. What kind of land did he buy? Then he thought of his old friend, who is a general now. Corey took pictures and texted the general. 1 second later, his phone rang. It was the general. Corey, move away as quiet as possible. You were never supposed to find this. Corey couldn't believe where his journey had led him. Just a few days ago, he was plowing his fields like any other day. And now? Now he was a whole new person. This journey made him realize the importance of life, and he would go home a changed man. But who was the owner of the capsule, and why was Corey so shocked? Somewhere in the world where the sun always shone and the rain regularly fell, lived a farmer named Corey. He was a hardworking man who loved nothing more than tending to his fields and watching his crops grow. One day, as he was plowing his fields, he noticed something in the distance he had never seen before. He saw a big piece of green metal sticking out from the ground. As he got closer, he realized it wasn't just a loose piece of metal lying around. It was a big metal capsule filled with little dark green balls. The capsule was filled with hand grenades. There were probably 50 of them, all piled up and ready to explode. Corey pulled his hand back and took a few steps backward. Unsure what to do next, he carefully walked back to the capsule and looked if the pins were still intact. To his relief, he saw that the pins were still in place, so he knew that the grenades were safe for the time being. But then he noticed something. In the corner of the capsule was something engraved. It was very hard to read as the rust had grown over it, but Corey could make out 2 letters and a few numbers. He ran inside to get a notepad and wrote everything down. JG3 329 995 523 9. Corey looked at the numbers but had no idea what they could be. He thought about calling the police, but Corey had always loved going on adventures or solving difficult riddles. And he also didn't want the bomb squad involved. They would take over his farm and probably destroy his crops with their cars while they removed the capsule. No, Corey definitely didn't want that. So there was only one thing he could do. Solve this mystery on his own, no matter how dangerous it could get. He went back inside and typed the initials into his computer. He hoped to find at least a name, but sadly nothing came up. He sat on his kitchen table, still looking at the numbers. He tried calling them to see if it was a phone number, but that was also a fail. There were a few numbers missing too. He only wrote down the numbers he saw clearly at that moment. So he opened one of the photos and zoomed in. Now he was able to make out a few more numbers and even the more letters, an N in the middle and a W at the end. N and W, wait a minute. Suddenly Corey realized what the letters meant. N stood for north and W stood for west. They were coordinates. Corey was very excited about his first discovery. After that, he decoded the other letters and soon he had all the coordinates he needed. He typed them into Google but was surprised with what he saw. The coordinates led to a thick forest somewhere in Utah. It would be a long drive if he wanted to go over there, but he knew there was no other way. This was the only lead he had at this moment, so he had to follow it. He knew it would be a long drive, so he decided to take his old pickup truck. He passed through small towns and rural areas, and the scenery changed from lush green fields to dense forests. Finally, after several hours of driving, he reached the coordinates. He found himself in the middle of the forest, and there was no sign of a road or a path. He followed the compass, and the coordinates seemed to lead him deeper into the forest. He also had to be careful of the animals that roamed the forest. He encountered a bear, but he managed to scare it away. As he walked, he started to notice signs of human activity. He saw old rusty cans and broken bottles. He also found old campfire sites and empty bullet casings. He knew he was getting close to something, and after hours of hiking, he finally arrived at a spot deep in the forest. There he found an old abandoned bunker. It was clear that it had been untouched for decades, but Corey could sense that there was something important inside. He carefully opened the door and stepped inside. Inside the bunker, it was dusty and dark. But he managed to find a torn-up piece of paper and a map. He was overjoyed, and he knew that his journey was not over yet. He stepped outside the bunker to look at his findings. The paper was discolored through the years, but the ink was still fairly readable. Corey spent the rest of the day studying the map and the piece of paper and suddenly realized something. Corey realized this wasn't just some Radome person's capsule. There was more to it. He still had no clue about to whom the capsule belonged, but he knew how old it roughly must be. This capsule definitely came from WB2 time. What a treasure! Corey was overjoyed and now more than ever motivated to keep going. He went back inside the bunker and found a journal that belonged to JG, the owner of the capsule. The journal was filled with stories of JG's time as a soldier during the war. Corey went home and contacted JG's family. Apparently, JG had gone missing during the war, and they were overjoyed to have some of his old belongings back. The end.